G'day YouTube, warbles on a lot here, and I don't know about you, but I've been paying a little bit of attention lately to some of the more interesting and curious things which have been going on, particularly diagonally trans-Pacific distances away from here in a place called the excited status of Norte Armed Americano, where in Australian terms on the 14th someone took a shot at Trumpy. I restrained myself and I restrained myself and I restrained myself some more, and on the 18th I put up a video talking about it. And on the 19th I said to me friends, when I went for the usual Friday night feeding, I said, by Monday morning, Joey Biden will no longer be standing as the candidate against Trumpy. And behold, by Monday morning, Biden was no longer the candidate. Okay, so we're now at the end of the work week. It's a Friday night. So let's have a bit of a look at what's been going on since Trumpy was shot and almost missed. So anyway, when we look at it through the C-backroscope, comparing what had been released publicly 3 days after the event and what I had to say about it, I got a lot of things more or less kind of right. I got a few things wrong. The biggest wrongness on my part, I assumed, like more or less everybody else did, that shooting at Trumpy was seen by Thomas Matthew Crooks as being a political act, and it probably wasn't, in the sense that he wasn't trying to do one side or the other a favour. He wasn't trying to kill the Republican candidate contender, because that's all Trumpy was at that point. He hadn't actually gone to the convention and he hadn't been made the candidate, and he hadn't picked his vice president's or presidential candidate. He was the leading contender. But the bloke who shot at him and who almost missed him and barely hit him in the ear, apparently with his first shot, he also, well, he researched Trumpy. He researched where he was going to go and when he was going to go there. And he spent at least a week getting ready for his gala performance on the roof of the building. But he also researched Biden and where Biden was going to go, and he researched both the RNC and the DNC conventions, and he had a portrait gallery in his phone of maybe 8 political celebrities on both sides of the two-party divide. Black and white, male and female, he wanted to target a celebrity. Now, we don't know what the name of Thomas Crooks's wank fantasy was. Who was his Jodie Foster, so to speak? Jodie Foster being the name of the movie star actress about whom John Hinckley Jr. was fixated in 1981 when he took a shot at Ronnie Reagan. And he hit him, but he used too small a gun. And it only incapacitated him and put him in hospital, and he recovered and he went on to be Ronald Reagan, who did all the other things that he did. And there are people who like him for it, but there are other people who remember the effect that his prissy duncy had on international law, and he will be forever reviled. I'm thinking precisely of the time when the Achille Lauro was hijacked and an American-Israeli dual citizen was thrown overboard by a member or members of the PLO in the Mediterranean Ocean. And then they went to Libya, and Prissy Dunce Reagan took exception to the fact that America didn't have any extradition treaty with Libya, so therefore he couldn't force Libya to offer those suspects up to American justice. And instead of accepting the fact that you haven't got an extradition treaty with them and they're not likely to come under your jurisdiction or into the jurisdiction of anybody else who can arrest them, get over it. That's what being the president of one country is all about. You're not king of the world. Well, Reagan didn't like that, so among other dumb things he did, he passed a legislation that said that if the US government had reasonable grounds to suspect that any individual anywhere in the world had harmed American citizens or interests, then the US government reserved the right to use whatever force it took to apprehend and arrest that individual and transport them to a place where American justice could be served. Therefore, apparently, when two of the Palestinians who America suspected of bombing the Pan Am airliner that exploded over Lockerbie, they were suspected of bombing that. I don't know whether they actually did it or not. I mean, that happened very soon after the US Navy shot down an Iranian civilian passenger airliner. And it seemed to me at the time, paying attention to the news, that Pan Am jumbo jet over Lockerbie was taken out by a barometric fuse on something in the cargo hold, probably to teach the Americans what it feels like to have a civilian airliner shot down out of a clear blue sky apropos of nothing that made sense to anyone. I think that was the Iranians, not the Palestinians, being, boo-hoo, sob, we want to go back to the homeland that was taken away from them in 1948. I think the PLO was a cover story. Just personally, again, looking through the C backroscope. But what Reagan did was he ordered the US Navy carrier battle group to intercept a civilian airliner flying from, I think it was Libya to Syria. Might have been Jordan, but it was somewhere that America didn't have an extradition treaty with. It was in international airspace. It was over international waters, and US jet fighters intercepted a civilian airliner and forced it to divert and land in Italy, and Italy's a member of NATO, so they said, sir, yes, sir. And when Uncle Spam said jump, when they got 3 foot off the ground, they said, how high? That was literally an act of piracy under international law. But ever since then, the US has reserved the right to behave like international air pirates all over the planet, and they have, and they continue to do so, and they reserve the right to plan to do so into the future. So, John Yanquis Jr. took a shot at that bloke and hit him, trying to impress a girlfriend who existed only in his imagination, in the sense that she either didn't know about him at all, or she knew that he existed and didn't care to know anything more about him. She was avoiding him. He was a stalker. I don't know who Thomas Crooks's object of unrequited love might have been, but it's entirely possible that he was trying to impress somebody. He might have been trying to impress him with his posthumous memory, but there is that. Everybody mentions that he was either rejected in his application to join the Reserve Officer Training Corps high school rifle team, or he was, as other media put it, kicked off the rifle team for not being a good enough shot. If he was a lousy shot, he would never have been on the rifle team. He may have been trying to join the rifle team, which would have had a selective membership drawn from the entire unit. The high school ROTC unit would have had a team. He tried to get onto the team, is my reading, understanding of what has been said. I don't think he was ever on the team and then kicked off. I think he just never made the team. It's possible he was trying to demonstrate that he was as good a shot as Lee Harvey Oswald. I say that specifically because yesterday the head of the FBI in a congressional question and answer session mentioned that they'd cracked his phone, Mrs. Crooks's phone, and found that he had Googled what distance was Lee Harvey Oswald from JFK when he shot him, 105 yards. So he set himself up where he was 30% further away from Trumpy than Lee Harvey Oswald was from JFK when he actually shot him. So he may have been basically sending a to the high school reserve officer training corps rifle team selectors who said, "Go away, you're a shit house shot." Um, so that's one thing. I no longer think he was trying to defend the flag of the United States and the Constitution for which it stands. I think he was grandstanding. I think he wanted people to remember him forever, and okay, he's done that. He has proved the adage that anyone can take a shot at the president. If they're a good shot, they can hit him and kill him, or hit her and kill her. But they have to be prepared to lose their life as the price. And as I mentioned in my previous video, the karmic feedback loop between squeezing the trigger the first time and taking the Secret Service bullet through the head was 8 seconds. It was 8 seconds time. And that's all been very well established. I also made a mistake when I said that he was known to have bought a ladder, and he used the ladder that he bought. He bought it the day before the shooting. He was assumed when I made the video to have used that ladder to get onto the roof. Later on, 12 hours later, somebody come up with another bit of information that no, the ladder he bought was a little short step ladder, and it's never been found since. Got the docket for it, but was not on the scene. They stated that there was a longer ladder, which was already at the situation, which he used since then, like yesterday, maybe this morning. News has popped out the pipeline that no, he didn't use any ladders. There were no ladders on the site. The police spent 5 minutes to half an hour carrying ladders over fences they had to ram with cars to get from where the rally was being held to where the building was that the shot came from. And when they got there, they had to use a little short-ass ladder that barely got them on top of one outbuilding, walkway, breezeway, whatever, and then get up onto the roof of somewhere else. It was quite hard to get there. They've also come up with the idea that Thomas Cook had a drone, a little consumer-grade drone. He didn't save the vision from it, but they've been able to reconstruct the drone's flight with GPS coordinates saved in the drone. And he made an 11-minute flight 200 meters away from the stage. He fired 200 meters behind him. Basically, he did a reconnaissance flight behind the position before he took up the position to make sure there was no police positions to the rear of the rooftop that he was planning on getting up and going onto. The timings, as they've established, there was 114 seconds between him getting onto the roof, or the first person saying, look, he's on the roof, he's climbing up onto the roof. That started when he first got past the guttering. As soon as he got to the guttering, people saw him and started talking. 114 seconds later, he fired his AR-15 platform, first shot, 114 seconds. 87 seconds before the shot was fired, somebody said to the policeman, there's a bloke on the roof, he's got a gun. There's a bloke on the roof, he's got a gun. The police on the ground were running around looking to see what they could see. And two of them got together, and because there was no ladder, apparently he's supposed to have climbed onto one building and then got onto the roof of another building and then used a pipe and shimmied his way up there with his backpack and his rifle and no ladder. So he didn't leave anybody any easy way to get up there. It took him a long while to get up there, even after he was dead. And then he stayed below the level of the ridge top. He's already been up there with a drone, and he's had a look from behind, and he knew from drone height which part of the roof ridge line was going to be out of sight of the nearby bunch of snipers, the nearest bunch, because there was a tree in the way. And when he went from the guttering up to the ridge line, he moved several sheets of tin to his right from where he came up onto the guttering near the corner of the building to where he went up to the ridge line. And then he was up there near the ridge line, but he was still below the level of the ridge line, as visible from the second bunch of police snipers who were further away, and they couldn't see him because he wasn't popping up into their sight. But people on the ground were reporting that the police who had been reported to had told their control, and there's video of the second team of snipers suddenly turning their guns around and pointing it in the direction of the building that the wannabe assassin was on the roof of. Okay, so in my first video, I mentioned that what the police really should have had was either a helicopter overhead or they should have had drone coverage. And I suspected that they didn't have a drone because they might have had a drone blocker, like a radio frequency interference jamming generator. No, they didn't have a drone because they didn't think of it. They didn't have a helicopter because probably would have annoyed the politician. But the bloke who was going to do the assassination attempt, he had a drone. Also had a couple of bombs in his car and transmitters on his belt, but he forgot to turn the bombs receivers on in the car. So even if he had had time to turn the transmitter on his body, he didn't turn the radio on in the car, so he fucked that one up. But up to this point, he's been doing really well. The police who approached the building, one of them made a stirrup with his hands, boosted the other one up. That cop got his way up, hanging on the guttering, got his head up. He made enough noise that he drew the attention of the shooter, and the shooter turned around and pointed his gun at him, still head down. None of the snipers could see him. The policeman, with both hands occupied, hanging onto the gutter 8 foot off the ground with no ladder, he let go and he cut his hand in the fall 8 foot to the ground. 8 seconds after the policeman let go of the guttering, the first shot rang out. So he's gone from pointing his gun back behind him, pointing his gun forward, shimmying as low as he possibly can go to get just the barrel of the gun and the sights in his head up above the ridgeline, and he fired 3 shots. One of those first 3 shots hit Trumpy. All 3 of them went behind Trumpy into the stadium behind him. And if you imagine me standing here as Trumpy, there was one stand of spectators behind him. There was another stand of spectators over there. There was another stand of spectators over there. And he's sort of more or less sitting inside the horns of the bull kind of thing. These spectators over here were perfectly safe. The ones that were directly behind. Most of the crowd's out there where the camera is. Trumpy's sitting here. He's got a little bunch of, look good spectators, window dressing here for the cameras. Another bunch here, another bunch here. The shooter's out off to the side. He clips Trumpy's ear, and those 3 bullets go into the far edge of the stadium over here where the fingers are, and that hits 2 people. Abdomen and chest. Big, bad, nasty hits. And then Trumpy touches his ear and looks at it and sees blood, and he starts going down. And as I suspected, at that point, the cordite smoke is clearing, and the gunman sees Trumpy looking at his hand and starting to fall. So the gunman decides to fire again, and he's depressing his muzzle, trying to get Trumpy as Trumpy's disappearing down out of his line of sight. And that's when the line of sight hits the near side to the shooter stadium, and that's when he hits the fireman in the head. As the 8th shot comes out of the gun, there's maybe a second pause. Thomas Crooks fires his eighth shot, and the second sniper team, who are the further ones away, who did not have the tree in front of him, now that he's got his head up and he's trying to fire, aiming down, so he's lifting himself up higher and higher and higher, bang, they got him in the head. I don't know whether it was them or the people behind the tree who fired the second sniper team shot 16 seconds after the one got the gunman in the head and killed him. There's been a lot of talk going on about the police who were inside the building that Crooks was on the roof thereof. Well, no, they were in the building behind, and they were sitting back from the open windows and they were looking out at the crowd, and they were either surveillance team or sniper team. The resigned director of the Secret Service, who initially said, oh, we didn't have a team on the roof because the roof was too steeply pitched. It was a 10-degree pitch roof. It's the lowest amount of pitch you can have without having a flat roof. So that was obviously bullshit. There were people saying, oh, the local police didn't have the resources to have a person up on the roof. Well, they had a team in the building. And apparently it was the team in that building who took the famous photo looking down on Thomas Crooks with a bit of a concrete wall behind him in the look down photo, and he's got his long hair and his glasses and his Demolition Ranch t-shirt, when he was walking around with his rangefinder. Now, there's no reason to have a rangefinder in front of that building there, but he was doing it in front of the open windows where the snipers were. I think the little shit decided, I'll go out there and walk in front of the cops with my rangefinder, and they'll see me with the rangefinder, which they did. They photographed it. They sent the photo in. All the cops were on the lookout for him with his rangefinder. And the cops who were in the building, they actually left their post and went out looking for him, which is why they weren't at the window to see him jump onto the air conditioner and onto the next building and get up. But even if they had stayed in the window, if they left somebody in there, to actually see him, they would have had to stuck their head out of the window and look left at a very kind of sharp angle to the very far corner of the building. He wasn't really observable to the sniper team that was inside the building. I have run across one account on YouTube, so it could be bullshit. Bloke being interviewed by a bona fide media organisation rather than a Fruit Loop in a lawn locker like you're listening to. But they had a fella who was a sniper working for government security teams. You know, that's what he did for a living. But he wasn't working for that mob on that day, so he somehow felt happy talking about what the scuttlebutt was that was going through the government sniper community. And he said the reason there was nobody on the roof was because there were supposed to be 3 sniper teams and only 2 of them turned up, and nobody else had anybody scheduled or rostered or detailed or deployed or ordered or told to go and secure that roof, is because there was supposed to be a 3rd sniper team on the roof. Were they the people who were inside the next building because, oh, it's too hot on the roof, I don't want to get up there and get fucking cooked? But there were supposed to be 3 sniper teams with interlocking fields of fire, and one of them was supposed to be up on the roof, and there were people inside the building who were described as being a sniper team, and they duly photographed the bloke who then went up onto the roof that they weren't sitting on, apparentarily. Perhaps, reportedly, so I've heard, and I'm sitting in a forest in Australia. All of the Republicans who were trying to float the idea that, oh, they've politicised the judicial system and tied poor old Trumpy up in lawfare and knots, and now they've tried to kill him. Yeah, that all fell kind of flat in their faces when it turns out that Thomas Crooks was a registered Republican. His parents were such good little Republicans that they'd been profiled in the 2020 election and the 2016 election. And according to the Trump organisation, Cooks's parents were 98% likely to own a gun. Well, they had either 20 that everybody said were registered to him, or 14 that the police said they found at the father's house when they searched the house, as well as a couple more bloody improvised explosive devices. Um, they reckon young Thomas had Googled, quote, major depressive illness. Now, whether that means that he was Googling himself to see whether he was depressed and he decided on the basis of, Dr. Google diagnosis, no, I'm not depressed, I'm making perfect sense. Or whether he decided, yes, I'm totally depressed, the world's up to fuck, so I might as well go out in a blaze of glory and borrow daddy's gun and go and clear my name with the ROTC by shooting a celebrity. Trumpy will do. He's coming closest, within 50 miles of where the dickhead lived. So there's that. And then there was the convention where Trumpy got up and he picked a bloke called J.D. Vance, who wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy. And, well, we have a bit of a problem with that. So we do. And he bases that hillbilly theory that he can write a book about hillbillies because he has some sort of ancestral connection, he says, to Kentucky. And Kentucky is in hillbilly country, as I understand it, along with North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. That's the hillbilly country kind of sort of thing. And, okay, I know a little bit about hillbillies because when I was 6 years old, I discovered I am a bloody hillbilly. Dad had been convinced to buy a brand new Mercedes 230 SE. He could afford to do that. He had his Volkswagen truck, and Mum had her Holden station wagon. Some young fella in town had won a Mercedes in the lottery and he needed to turn it into money because he was just going into business, and yeah, my old man decided he could afford to do that. And we were going to Inverell to see the dentist, so we took the new car. And we were coming home via Dad's auntie's place, Auntie Mary, who lived at Gilguy. And she was Dad's mother's sister, so my grandmother's sister. And we arrive in front of a hedge beside the footpath, beside the road. And there's an archway cut into the hedge, and there's an old wooden gate with no paint on it. And we go get out of the car, and as we get out of the car, there's a voice, and it says, visitors, Kath. Don't know who it are, Kath, visitors, fancy new car, Kath, come and have a look, Kath, visitors. Shit, we thought, Dad looked like he sort of knew what was going on. Me and Mum didn't. And we come through the arch and the gate, and we see there's this really old tumble-down house, and it had no more paint on it than the gate. The paint had fallen off in the sun 50 or 100 years ago. And it was a bullnose veranda, bent corrugated iron roof. And that was going all the way around a fairly simple little 90-degree pitch, built by pommies expecting the snow. Before global warming, we did get snow back then. And up on the ridgepole, there's a cockatoo, a sulphur-crested white cockatoo. And it's only got 3 feathers on it. That's the 3 yellow ones on its head. So it's like this leathery little caricature of a cockatoo. And that's who's yelling, visitors, Kath, come and have a look, visitors. And the woman who opened the door had a plait that went down nearly to her knees, hanging down the back, a big single plait, and it was black at the knees and it was grey at the top of her head. And she opened her mouth and she had one tooth here and she had another tooth here, and she couldn't bring them together. And she had more teeth than anybody else in the house. And they offered us a cup of tea, and they habitually kept a packet of oatmeal biscuits open on the top of the food safe so that the biscuits could absorb moisture from the air and they'd be soft enough to gum to death. And I looked at all that when I was 6 years old and I thought, shit, I'm a hillbilly. Okay, fair enough. And it was a bit of a blow at the time because, I'd been raised on the snobby side of the hill until then. However, when I was a teenager, I read about a hillbilly called Chuck Yeager, and his father had been an oil driller in, I think it was South Carolina, might have been West Virginia, but anyway, um, he'd grown up learning about pressure regulators and valves and pipes and fittings and stuff, and he understood mechanical engineering at an imprinted role model level. He always understood that sort of thing, and he wanted to get into flying, and he got into flying, and it turned out he was the archetypal natural. He was as good an American test pilot in the long run as Eric Brown was in the British Empire, although Eric Brown flew a wider variety of aeroplanes than anybody on the planet. You know, 575 different types of aeroplane, and that's if you count all 27 marks of Spitfire as one type of Spitfire. All the marks of Messerschmitt 109, yeah, call them all ME 109. Count aeroplanes like that, and he still flew 500 and something different types. Anyway, Chuck Yeager was the first person to be documented to break the speed of sound under full control and do it intentionally. So he became instantly the guru god king at the very top of the ziggurat, which is a fancy word for a pyramid, but up on top of the ziggurat of power among pilot esteem, there was Chuck Yeager. He was the hottest test pilot, the fastest pilot alive, the biggest smarty pants, and he was a hillbilly. And he never dropped his hillbilly twang. And after Chuck Yeager broke the speed of sound emanating from America, coming out of the US Army Air Corps and then the US Air Force, there was the hillbilly twang, and it got all over the airlines, it got all over the bloody world. And for a while there in the 60s and 70s, yeah, hillbillies were pretty much respectable. Beverly Hillbillies, it was a meme, but they were funny, they were smart, they were culturally disconnected, but they were smart and they were funny. So yeah, I didn't mind being a hillbilly, and when I heard of this J.D. Vance writing a book called Hillbilly Elegy, I even vaguely, faintly remember hearing about it, but it didn't get particularly good acclaim here in Australia. Now it's risen to prominence again, and apparently there's a chapter where he describes a sexual congress between himself and a couch or a sofa and a rubber glove between the couch cushions, which was way more information than I would think anybody who ever wanted to become a president would put into their book. But the big thing is, he's written his whole book as a thesis talking about how terrible it is that people are able to extract themselves from an unhappy marriage, because it might be a miserable marriage or even a violent marriage, and that's no good for the kids in his point of view, and it's difficult to argue with that, but he doesn't quite think it through. He reckons that getting out of a bad marriage is the problem, when from my personal observation the problem is not getting out of a bad marriage, it's recombining with somebody else who's also getting out of a bad relationship, and two people who've demonstrated one talent in their whole life, and that is they picked a partner with whom they could not stand to live, and then they went broody with them. Now, I did that, and that's why I don't have a partner, because I've forfeited my right to try and do that shit, because no kid deserves to have me play dice with their childhood like I did with my stepchildren's childhood. I thought that me having a romance with their mother was going to be a good thing for everybody concerned, but not so. On the one hand, every minute their mother spent talking to me was a minute she was not spending parenting two kids who were already delicate and fragile because their parents had fucking split up. They didn't need mummy pushing them aside so she could concentrate on her relationship with me. That was the last thing those kids needed. So, yeah, I think this J.D. Vance, he's got a hold of the wrong end of the stick. It's not exiting a shitty relationship that's the problem. It's people who have exited a shitty relationship who think it's okay to go again and again and again. And I don't know whether he's put it in so many words, but the reason they call women the housekeepers is every time they fucking get divorced, they get to keep the house. And then they want their ex-partner to go and continue to pay them support while they go and have another relationship with somebody else. And, well, unless you're Rupert Murdoch or John Singleton, and you can afford to keep paying women to piss off when you get sick of them, and then bribe somebody else ever younger and sillier to come and tell you how much they love you. I don't see why any sane bloke in the ordinary world would want to be in on that one. But yeah, JD Vance blames all that on changes to regulation, legislation, society, culture and mores, which mean that, yeah, with the 60s and 70s, the free love generation, which was also the make love not war generation, the anti-Vietnam generation, the bloody summer of 68 in Paris, the Prague Spring, there was a lot going on in 68, the Tet Offensive. But there was also, penicillin had been around since the end of Second World War, so the two big scary reasons to not be serially monogamous or actively promiscuous, which was syphilis and gonorrhea, they could be knocked on the head with a shot of penicillin. That loosened up a lot of people's moral codes. Then oral contraceptives came around in the 1960s, and that meant that women who wanted to be sexually active no longer had to be terrified every month as to whether they were pregnant this time. Condoms became synthetic rather than latex based, like natural latex. So they became thinner. Everything was looking pretty good until herpes and genital warts were discovered about the same time chlamydia and non-specific urethritis. And it was all starting to look a little bit more complicated than we thought. By the end of the 70s and the start of the 1980s, it was like, gee, I don't know whether this is such a great idea. Got to be a bit careful here. And then they invented AIDS, or discovered AIDS, the acquired immune deficiency syndrome coming from the human immunodeficiency virus. And at about that point, well, even Swami Bagwash, the promiscuous guru of the Orange people, he told his mob, you're going to have to stop this promiscuous sex. He was wrong about that. AIDS will kill a bloody lot of us, of them, of us, of everyone. That was the feeling back then. But the free love generation weren't interested in really changing their behaviour much. They just threw a lot of money into research, and now if you stay on the right cocktail of drugs, you can kind of defeat that virus. But there's still an awful lot of traumatised teenagers coming out the end of the multiple polyphase Brady Bunch pipelines. So yeah, JD Vance is not entirely wrong in what he says there, but just about everything else I've heard put out there that's supposed to be attributed to him, it's just horse shit. He's up there fronting for the MAGA tards. He's supposedly the candidate of Trumpy, the white Christian nationalist, great patriotic guarder of the borders. And he's married to the daughter of migrants who came from the Indian subcontinent, and he's got 2 out of 3 of his children have very markedly Indian names. His wife's a Hindu. He used to be an atheist, but he decided to get religion and become a Catholic so that being married to a Hindu would be easier for him. It's only about 6 months since he was calling Hitler he was calling Trumpy America's Hitler. There's a Freudian slip for you. So yeah, that was who Trumpy picked as his Veep at the convention, days after he'd been shot, when Biden was off sick with COVID. All of Biden's most loyalist camp followers were saying, oh, Biden's going to go the bloody distance. He's coming good. You've all caught him on a bad day. As soon as Vance was locked in, Biden says, that's it. I got enough energy to be a president, but I haven't got enough energy to campaign as well. So he's stepped down, stepped aside. And all of the money that was donated to the Biden-Harris campaign, it's all lawfully very easily transferable to Kamala Harris. But if there's a contested convention among the Democrats, then all hell breaks loose legally, financially. $90-odd million would have to be paid back, although, were it necessary, in the first 24 hours, Kamala Harris raised $121 million. So they could pay it back with the first day's fundraising. All the Democrats who've been hesitant to donate money to Biden because he was obviously looking like a lost cause for the next 4 years, they've opened their pockets. All of the independents who were planning on not voting because they couldn't vote for Biden because he was too old and too unpalatable, and they couldn't vote for Trumpy because he's as mad as a March hare, they're now swinging in to want to vote for Kamala Harris. It's got to the point where the Republicans are so flaming terrified, they're talking about trying to launch a lawsuit to say the Democratic Party doesn't have the right to change their candidates because the Republican Party has spent millions of dollars preparing to fight Joe Biden. And that because the Democrats have already held their primaries and 14 million people have voted for Joe Biden to be their candidate, somehow the Republicans think that means they didn't vote for Kamala Harris to also be their candidate, and Biden stepped down, so therefore Kamala is the candidate. They've just got to find who the vice presidential candidate for the Democrats is. The Republicans are in a chaotic mood. It's all doom and gloom. And I'm a bit worried. The reasons I'm worried is because the way the US Constitution is written, if something bad happens to the president, like JFK got shot, all of a sudden, Gerald Ford was the president, sworn in, same day. So if Biden dropped dead tomorrow, Kamala Harris would be president. If they were both on the same aeroplane and the aeroplane crashed and they both died, the Speaker of the House would be president, and that's Mike Johnson. If Biden and Harris were both incapacitated, Mike Johnson is the acting president. Let that one sink in. Extreme, MAGA-tard, sycophant, no brain of his own. He'll do whatever Trump's puppet string tells him to do. Trump's hand's so far up his arsehole, he can feel the fingernails on the back of his tonsils. He becomes president if anything happens to Joey Biden and Kamala Harris. Now that AR-15 platform that young Thomas Crook's got his hands on, Daddy's one. That's a popular gun, that one is, the AR-15. Now in America, there's 330 million people and there's 360 million guns. But only 25% of Americans own any guns at all. And the average gun owner possesses 8. So if every one of them has only got 1, there's somebody else who's got 16. Right? So Thomas Crook's father, who had either 20 or 14, he's within standard deviation of the mean, like if 1 and 16 are the ends of the average, and then there are the Fruit Loops. And for every 10 people who've got no guns, there's one person with 160. And there are people with 160 guns. The bloke who owns Demolition Ranch Channel, now I thought his name was Matt Eastman. I don't know why I thought it was Matt Eastman. Maybe he was riffing on Damon Eastman or something. Matt Damon, I don't fucking know. His name's Matt Carriker, Carriker, or CKER, Matt Carriker. Picked that one up off Brandon Herrera. And Brandon Herrera and mm, several other ballistic channels, including ballistic slow-mo guys and a whole bunch of them, they got together and they recreated the shot that hit Trumpy's ear. And they used a really high-grade ballistic gel, anatomically correct model of a human head, and they shot it through the ear with a .223 AR-15 platform and thousands of frames per second slow-mo. And they showed the ear coming out the size of a cauliflower with a hole that big that the bullet went through before the ear contracts back to the normal size. Very interesting piece of footage. Go and check it out. But Matt Carrick, he runs Demolition Ranch. It was his brand name T-shirt that Crooks was wearing when he shot Trumpy. I saw a video of his where he had a go at shooting all of his guns in one video, and he had trestle tables lined up with his guns covering the trestle tables. And I think it took him 32 minutes to fire one magazine out of each one of his guns. He keeps a block of land where he does nothing but go out there and shoot guns at bits of metal and tin cans and plastic jugs of tomato sauce and mustard. That's his shtick. He's a recreational shooter. He doesn't advise anybody to shoot for political reasons. He doesn't advise people to shoot animals for hunting because he's a frickin' vet. That's where he makes the money to buy the guns with before he got on YouTube. Now he's got all the money he wants in the world. He's got 11 million subscribers, plus Patreon and God knows what else. And he sells T-shirts and merchandise. But he inspires people to think that guns are really, really super cool and really, really super sexy, and it's really good to have the power to destroy whatever you can see if you can calculate correctly the distance, the trajectory, the bullet drop, and the windage of whatever weapon you're using and whatever it is you can see that you might want to poke a ballistic hole in. That is the mindset suck-in that you get into once you start falling in love with playing with guns, trying to be able to hit the target. You know, I remember I was the captain of the rifle team, you know. I was one of the fellows who could do it pretty good. I know what Thomas Crooks was trying to be when he got his little heart broken in the rifle team. Poor bugger. Didn't give him the right to go and shoot at another person, though. He got the idea that he could do that from looking at all of the movies and videos and magazines that he'd ever read and looked at in his whole bloody life. So what has the Republican Party got that they can look forward to? How can they salvage something from this? There are some polls that say Kamala Harris is now polling 60% favourable to Trump. He's 40% favourable. He's now 20 points behind her. 2 or 3 days ago, he was 2 points behind her, whereas a week ago he was 2 points in front of Biden. He'd already shifted 4 points. He now appears to have shifted another 16. What are his die-hard supporters going to want to do? He's the one who's been gingering up the base with calls to stochastic violence, which is when you talk about, you know, oh, well, nobody worried me of this troublesome priest, and, you know, someone goes out and kills Thomas a Becket sort of thing. Crooks has just shown every gun nut in the country that all you got to do is outthink a bunch of people who are in a sinecure where most of the time nothing happens, and they get used to going through the motions and doop-de-doop-de-doop-de-doop-de-doop-de-doop. Put all the little fucking lemmings through the metal detector as they go in there to clap and cheer for the politician of the day. Doesn't matter who the politician is. You know, it's not very often that there's a mass shooting, and they certainly don't happen where there's a whole bunch of security guards. All of a sudden, bang, and they shoot themselves and don't know what to do, and they can't find a ladder, and it takes them 20 minutes to get up there on the roof to have a look at the fellow that got shot and killed. 8 seconds after he just attempted to dispatch a headshot to kill Trumpy. 16 seconds. No, Yeah, 8 seconds after he did that, and about 2 seconds after he headshot an innocent victim. And it's one of those funny things in the cosmic scoreboard effect. In order for everybody to have absolute perfect liberty, free will, to choose to do whatever you want to do, including the perfect freedom to pick wrong and choose to do dopey, dumb shit like, apply for a job as a concentration camp guard. There are people who got paid for that. And because of their free will choice to take that job, somebody else got stuck as an innocent victim being an inmate in the concentration camp. Sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes you've led as good a life as you possibly can. You're at your spiritual peak. There's no way you can make yourself a better person. And if you get suddenly taken off the playing board, you might serve as a brilliant inspiration for hundreds or thousands of other people. You might also serve as somebody else's learning experience. They get to go through filling in the paperwork and going to court and seeing what happens when you kill someone. In this case, it was worse than that. It was vastly worse than that. Thomas Crooks was trying to aggrandize himself, and he was prepared to put everybody on the planet through the fucking trauma of having the presidential candidate shot out from under the security guards. On camera, live stream, round the fucking world. Can you imagine the chaos he would have unleashed if his shot had been 50 millimeters to the right of where it went through Trumpy's ear? Okay, so I've got two predictions, both of them nasty, both of them approximately equally likely to occur. Both of them would succeed in putting MAGA, if they work, would succeed in putting MAGA in charge irrefusably. One of them would be if some right-wing gun nut takes out Biden and Harris simultaneously and makes Mike Johnson the acting president. If that happens, America goes down in a fucking left, right, probably black, white, migrant, born there, multi-cornered civil war, 50 states, so that's 150 corners to the Civil War, and there are 50 state governors who are in command of all of the National Guard units inside their state borders. So there are state governors who've got access to Air Force bases with jet fighters and ground attack helicopters. There are others who've got battle tanks and anti-aircraft tanks. Others have got fucking long-range rocket artillery. It goes on. If state governors decide to use their National Guard to fight against the federal government in Washington because they don't like the colour of somebody's ballot paper, meanwhile, all you got to do to get Americans to shoot at each other is run out into the street, yell zombie, and shoot the first person you see. And they'll all fucking run out shooting at the zombies, trying to defend the can of baked beans at the back corner of their basement, behind all 37 of their guns and ammo. I mean, that place is primed to turn into a 24-hour-a-day permanent 360-degree omnidirectional shooting gallery on every street all the time. If Crooks had have shot the presidential candidate, that would have happened. And I think if anybody shoots Biden and Harris, that will happen. The other way that MAGA could trump Harris is if Trump emulates Biden, steps down, and they run Ivanka. If MAGA runs Ivanka against Kamala, Ivanka will win, and the Simpsons will have been fucking vindicated because they had a cartoon episode where there was a campaign slogan or a banner or something in the background, and it was Ivanka 2028. That's how you could get to that. If MAGA runs Ivanka, or if some fucking right-wing lunatic gun nut inspired by Crooks showing how, if you think about it, If you put your mind to it with a drone and you can climb up a fucking water pipe with your daddy's AR platform, and 5% of the gun owners in America possess an AR-15, and there are 84.5 or something million gun owners, right? 25% of 33 million, and 5% of that 80 something million have got an AR-15. It works out to 4,125,000 AR-15s scattered out there among the 84 million Americans who own a gun. And your average American who owns one gun owns 8 guns. I really hope whoever the fuck is in charge of the presidential secret security detail right now is better than the lady who resigned. I hope they're a hell of a lot better than whoever it was who allowed the 3rd sniper team to go inside a building rather than being on the roof because it was a hot day. And I think they really ought to have a look at the idea of the security teams having a drone team at all outdoor venues, although they're saying they're not going to let him have any more outdoor venues. They're going to make him go inside where they can control the environment. So there you go. And of course, that's not actually a prophecy. It's not even meant as advice for him. It's more a prognostication, an extrapolation, perhaps, kind of sort of thing. What it is more like an educated guesstimate of what I think is likely to be the only possible way for MAGA to get their hands on the levers of power now that Kamala Harris is the presumptive candidate for the Democrats. If the election goes ahead in November, if Kamala Harris is the Democrat candidate, unless she picks a complete moron, somebody who's really truly unpalatable to the vast majority of Americans, she's going to win. And it's possible that the reason she's going to win is because the karmic feedback loops within the cosmic scoreboard effect require that Donald Trump have the semblance of success all the way up until he gets his nose rubbed in the excrement of his own defeat by reality. He thinks that if he's just greasy and sleazy and devious and underhanded enough, he will be able to outmaneuver all of the people who he regards as being stupid, who respect the law. He doesn't respect the law. He does whatever he can to get around the law. Sometimes he pays lip service to obeying the letter of the law, but he shits all over the spirit of the law. It's his modus operandi. It's what he does for kicks, for fun. His mother sent him to a military academy, and when he was at home on holidays, she went away on holidays. He missed out on mummy cuddles. He's got no actual self-esteem. He's got a festering emptiness inside of himself. Some people feed their festering emptiness with food. Some people feed it with power tripping and money, hungriness. He does both of that. He also seems to feed the emptiness at the centre of his self-esteem, or centre of his soul, by treating women like shit. I watched a movie about the way he treated a little old lady who lived beside the place he wanted to buy and turn into a golf course in Scotland. She wouldn't sell her house to him. So he organised for his landscaping engineers to destroy her spring fed water supply. 90 years old and bucketing water into a wheelbarrow to move it from the stream to the house. And he's done this like in 2015. The only reason he's getting away with all that is because he doesn't honestly believe or know or recognise the wrongness of what he's doing, and I can only chalk that up to lousy parenting. We live in a relativistic universe. I see life through my eyes, lit by my lights, guided and informed by the sum total of my observations and experience and learnings and what I've been taught and what I accept. You see life from your position through your lights and your experiences, and you and I look at the same thing and we see them differently. Yeah, well, Trump's been taught to believe that the world was put there for him to make money out of. And anybody who gets between him and how much money he can make in the world, they are clearly evil. They are just self-interested. They've got their agenda. They hate Trump. He speaks of himself in the third person. He's a buffoon. He's a fucking idiot. His comb over is an affectation that he pays millions of bloody dollars for. I've got a beard that does a better job than his fucking comb over, and this is just what happens when you stick your head in the linear accelerator for 70 minutes. You come out with a different hairline. How much money has he spent on that fucking trained patch of pubic hair that he runs up from his arsehole along the length of his spine and turns into a curly little blonde painted arabesque on top of his head? Looks like a cow shit. That thing's probably consumed millions of dollars in attempts to make it look like a young man's hair. He spent all that money caricaturing Biden for being the old man that he is and pretending that Trumpy, 4 years younger, is not old and going senile. His father went senile. There's a lot of video evidence of Trumpy losing the plot when he's speaking on stage. He spends a lot of time talking about the relative dangers of electric batteries on an electric boat and jumping into the water because the battery's on fire, or getting electrocuted because of the seawater in the battery, or being eaten by a shark. He has rallies where people pay money to travel to go there. I don't know what it costs them to get in the door, but they certainly take time out of their lives and it costs them money to get there. And they go and listen to him talking about sharks and batteries and electric boats. And a fictional movie character called Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal the Cannibal. And he honestly believes that enough Americans are stupid enough to elect him. He thinks he's got a right to run for presidency in order to stay away from his legal troubles, which is what got him into the whole shit scene in 2016. And the Federalist Society has spent 50 years corrupting the judiciary, systematically corrupting the judiciary. I don't know what the Americans are going to do about their crooked courts. I don't know what they're going to do about their cultural desire for every person who wants one to have access to a gun so that any time they get frightened, they can fucking shoot whoever they want to feel frightened of. And when you put them in a motor car, that all turns into road rage, and they're just as likely to bloody stop and shoot someone as they are to, run them off the road. There's currently a 50,000 acre wildfire running in California because some dickhead was upset because his car broke down or blew up. I don't know whether he blew up the engine or the car broke down or whether it was actually on fire. But anyway, He got his car and he pushed it off the road down a gully into the riverbed. And when it got to the bottom, whether he couldn't be bothered disconnecting the battery, he didn't take the battery out of it, or whether the car was already on fire when he pushed it down the hill, when it got to the bottom and it wrecked itself, it caught fire. Maybe it was just a piece of metal and a bit of ironstone in the riverbed, but it started a wildfire in steep, hilly, ravine-racked country, and he's 50,000 acres in a day and a half. The whole bloody state of California is trying to fight it. New South Wales has large air tankers over there. I hope they don't make a mess of it. Colsons are flying it. They've crashed 2 large air tankers out here in Australia. Sometimes they have more enthusiasm than judgment, apparently, because you don't get through that sort of mission on flying ability. You get on through that sort of shit on judgment. You use your superior aeronautical judgment to make sure you don't get into a situation where you have to call on your superior aeronautical abilities as a stick and rudder pilot, which is a long way from where we were. So I should probably call a halt to this video and see what it all looks like. With all that ranting, so what have we covered? Thomas Cooks. Right now, the FBI are trying to figure out who his wank fantasy was. If they can figure out who his wank fantasy was, then they'll know who his Judy Foster might have been. The ladder, he didn't use a ladder. He shimmied up a drain pipe. How did he manage to hide behind the tree so one sniper team couldn't get him? He used a drone. $4.125 million AR-15 platforms floating loose in the American population. Trumpy looks like shit on a stick in the election. Joe Biden played him like a fucking fish on a lure. Sucked him in, chewed him up, spat him out, trod on him, and then shat on him as he walked away. That's what's happened to Trumpy in the MAGA turd campaign, which, as I said, makes me very, very trepidatious, because I fear that, well, the point is that 65 or 70% of the Republican Party are firearm owners, and only about 30 or 40% of the Democratic Party are firearm owners. So there are more guns on the Republican side, which is maybe why it was a Republican son who took a shot at Trumpy. I worry about Biden and Kamala, because I'd really fucking hate to see Mike Johnson suddenly, ballistically, or by dint of poisoning or aeroplane crashes or anything else, promoted to being the acting president. That would be truly disastrous, because he would do whatever Trumpy told him to do. And I really fear that someone in MAGA will have the fucking wit to get Trumpy to copy Biden and run Ivanka instead, because that's their only hope of beating Kamala Harris, is Ivanka for presidency. A white woman versus a black woman. Who do you think the Yankees will vote for? It would defuse the misogynistic gender side of the issue perfectly, and it would go back to white Christian nationalism and blonde Barbie versus Topsy. Wouldn't that be the correct counterpart? Barbie doll and Topsy. Look it up. Back in the 1930s, my mother was absolutely bursting with pride because she had a Topsy doll. There was an immortal line in an American movie where somebody asked Topsy where she came from Or no, when she was born. And Topsy answered, I was never born, I just growed. And any time my mother couldn't explain the origins of anything, she reckoned it just grew there, like Topsy. But that's what it'll come down to. Blonde Barbie doll with billions of dollars from the internationally corrupt businessman Jewish husband, or Kamala Harris, Topsy. Good luck, my subscribers in America. We live in interesting times. I strongly advise you keep your pretty heads down. Do not stick your head up above the parapet. Do not shoot at anybody. Do not shoot at anybody. You do not have the right to terminate the life of anybody who's breathing in and out. If they need to be dead, the universal creator God theory will organise for them to die on time and within schedule. Warbles, I'd like to YouTube. Ciao.